Hey, it's Eric Rokeach with FitnessBusinessInterviews.com, and I'm here with Rocco Castellano. Now, if you don't know Rocco, then what you need to know is he's the no BS, in-your-face, anti-fitness guy who straight up says it as it is. He's built some crazy businesses, trained a ton of people, and he's helped a lot of those people develop a celebrity status by building their brand. And I invited Rocco on here today to specifically talk about branding and how it helps to build businesses. So Rocco, thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Eric, we've been trying to get this interview for a little while now, and I'm very happy that we've been able to do this because now I think what you're doing for the fitness industry is just absolutely awesome.
Cool, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, so little background information. Born in Queens.
Born in a Jewish hospital.
Okay.
An Italian Catholic born in a Jewish hospital in Queens, and then my parents moved to New Jersey because my father worked for a trucking company in North Bergen, New Jersey, and we lived in Ridgefield, New Jersey. You know, a small town of like 18,000.
Okay.
But
all right, cool. Now, how did you? Because you kind of have that. I mean, you have a reputation as with the attitude and the no BS style. Have you always kind of been like that? Was just kind of who you were, or was that how you developed it?
Wait, I have a reputation, really?
Yeah, a little bit, just a tad.
Actually, I developed. It didn't really develop. It was all part of me, and that's kind of what I teach people: is that once you know who you are, or what you're about, and what you stand for, then everything else just kind of like you kind of bleed your brand. And one story I like to tell is that when I found out that I was an asshole, everything really kind of meshed. For the longest time, I was living in the fitness industry, trying to do everything that everybody else was doing, and it just wasn't working because I kind of call that stage of my life the kind of gay Rocco stage because I wasn't a homosexual, but it just seemed like I wasn't me. I was outside of myself all the time, and I wasn't bleeding my real brand. And so to say that I developed this no BS style, I was always like that, but most people hated me because of it, because I'm going to tell you the truth and make you feel uncomfortable so that I challenge you. And in that challenging, it is going to be, like I said, very uncomfortable and sometimes almost painful. And I have a book coming out called Taking Back the Power, which actually takes you through that real intense pain. Sometimes that you have to go through, because I had to go through it. I grew up with parents that sucked. They didn't give me any tools whatsoever to actually live a life. And so I had to do it myself. And most of the business skills that I learned was due to survival skills. And then, so I was doing things that I thought were right, or what I thought, because of the marketing gurus said, oh yeah, you should do this, 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 and this. Well, it was nothing. It had nothing to do with Rocco Castellano whatsoever. I wasn't genuine. I wasn't authentic. And once I found out how to, that I could live in my own skin, that I could live in this body and actually make money at it, everything else changed. And getting back to when I found out that I was an asshole, that was probably the coolest thing in the world, because most people said, oh, well, people think I'm an asshole. That's like the worst thing. I should change my life and da-da-da. Well, that's not necessarily true, because everything that I have inside of me is me. I own it. I can take responsibility. All the bad experiences, all the good experiences, and everything that makes me is very authentic, very genuine, and it's very truthful.
Now,
so I'm going.
Now, let me ask you, I'm going to stop you there just for a second. I want to know, going through, you learned this along in the process, but how long have you been in the industry, and how long were you before it took you to realize that you really weren't being true to yourself?
That's very, very funny, because I've been in the industry now since I was like 10 years old. Okay, I grew up in my cousin's gym in Ridgefield, New Jersey, at the North Jersey Health Club.
Okay.
But I didn't, I grew up in it, and I learned how to sell. I learned how to do all the basic mechanical things that you learn. I could sell anything. Boom. Okay, let's sell. But when it became time to actually own a business and to make sure that it was a viable entity, that was probably not till I was in my 30s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was successful in spite of myself. And that's something that most fitness professionals happen to be. They are successful up to a point in spite of themselves. Because you can talk to people and you can get people to listen to whatever your sales pitch is, and you can get them to be training with you, right? And how many people out there are training 60, 70, 80 hours a week? It's not a hard thing to do, but then what do you do from there? If you need to go further, like I did, because I couldn't contain myself, and I was basically sick of training the same fat people, the same questions, the same stupidity on a regular basis. I was literally going insane. So I wanted to get away from that, and we knew that I couldn't do it. I made this video. It was called The Winning Image for beauty queens, because I just happened to stumble into training, a Miss USA contestants, and I made this video, and it was everything that I'm not, every single thing that I'm not, and it was a good video, but when you see it, you go, "Ooh, that was gay rock." Ooh. And you cringe. You just cringe, because if you know me, now, and you knew me back then, you go, "Wow, that has nothing to do with him."
All right. Well, I want to get to that point. Okay, I want to get to where, you decided to do some changing. So you said early on, in family, you were in the health clubs at a real young age. You learned how to sell. You learned how to do all that. At what point was it where you actually went out and started your own business?
Well, I was in jail when I was 18, and when I got out, I bought my cousin's gym.
Okay.
So I already had my own business. And I always kind of was a little entrepreneur. Like when I was 6 years old, I shined shoes. And I made my lunch money because my parents never gave me it. So I was always entrepreneurial in a way. I always had this thought process of that. But I did have my first business when I was 18 years old, and it kept going from there. But to make my business a viable entity where my brand was exposed to a lot of different people on, across the region or across the nation, it wasn't until I was 33 years old. And to answer your question more in depth, it was when I really learned that I was an asshole. That was the point where I knew that I could make money being myself, being authentic to myself, and I didn't have to walk around thinking that I was going to be found out. I lived half my life believing that I was going to be found out, that they were going to find out that I went to jail, or that I did this, or that I had a problem with alcohol at one time, or whatever. It was always some kind of crazy fucked up thing. And I was like, I can't, when you live like that, you're constantly living in fear. And the other pillar of success is never make a decision based on on emotion, fear, guilt, or shame.
Okay.
So, so when you can live your life that way, everything actually comes forward. Everything moves forward. So,
All right, cool. Now, was there a specific point, like you said you did the video for the beauty queens, was there something that just said, all right, what the hell am I doing? Was there a specific moment in your life that you said, all right, I got to stop pretending and just be myself?
well, yeah, there was. I had so many different businesses going on because I was chasing money, and the whole chasing money scenario is, okay, well, I got to do this because somebody else said that that's a good thing to make money with. And I had at one time 15 different businesses that wasn't related to the fitness industry. I had my personal training business, and I actually had a business called Rocco's Complete Fitness Systems, and that was my personal training business. And then I had this product that was workouts on tape, and I was the first person to ever put workouts on tape, and that was back in 1992 on a cassette tapes, not even CDs. Imagine that. So I had a product called the Hit Fitness System. I also had a product called The Winning Image, Rocco Castellano's The Winning Image. And I had all these other businesses. I had a coffee shop. I had a screen printing business,
Right.
and
Okay.
embroidery business. All these different businesses, and they were basically businesses of convenience. But all the fitness stuff, it was basically like the car industry is and was, where they had all these different like products, and you had to market every single one differently. And I wasn't able to bring it all together. And once I developed the Ask Rocco brand, that's when, and that was like around 2001, 2002. So it wasn't that long ago, really, where I developed the Ask Rocco brand. And once we did that and put everything under Ask Rocco, I was able to get a syndicated column, a syndicated radio segment,
Right.
and my celebrity just exploded.
Okay, so it was at the point that when you had all these different businesses and you realized you couldn't market to each one differently, that you're like, I'm tired of this, I'm just going to be myself, and then that's how the Ask Rocco brand and everything came about.
Yes, actually, I was spread way too thin, and I wound up losing a lot of money in some real estate deals. And I was like, you know what? I'm done, man. I don't know what to do. I know how to make money. It's pretty easy for me to make money. It's just I want people to know who a Rocco Castellano is, and I want them to really know who I am. And that's when we developed. I had a column in Cincinnati called Ask Rocco. And I knew my name was a different name, so we kind of used that in the Midwest because there's not too many people known as Rocco. So in the Midwest, we knew that that name and my personality and my voice, and my attitude would absolutely explode. Okay. So with that being said, that's when the Ask Rocco brand started to get a little traction. Because we used it for the consumer base, and ask Rocco anything and he'll give you an answer type deal.
Okay, so you had your name, you have the voice, you have the personality to go with it. What were you specifically doing to brand yourself and spread the awareness about you?
Well, I had to first learn about learn what was really good about me and learn what was really bad about me. And that was like that whole thing about, I know who you are or what you're about and what you stand for. And once I was literally able to understand those 3 specific things, that's when I was able to say, okay, this is who I am and this is what you're going to get. And if you don't like it, basically go fuck yourself.
Right.
And once I was able to tell people to go fuck themselves, it was a lot easier, because the second best answer is always no.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that. Now, back then, I didn't want anybody to say no to me. I didn't like a rejection. I didn't understand. And like part of being a business and part of being a real brand is that, sometimes people just aren't going to like you.
Right.
And that's a really good thing. Some people hate Apple,
Mm-hmm.
and some people love Microsoft. So what?
Right. Right. Now let me dive into that a little bit more, because I know a lot of people have, in businesses and just in life, they have a tough time dealing with rejection and with no, and as you begin to brand and grow, you're going to get more people creating enemies. You're a little bit different, but what would you recommend for someone, like how to deal with all that negativity and just in dealing with the enemies?
Well, first of all, define your enemies. Define who they might be, because I always believe that and your enemies are your competition. Even if you don't believe, first of all, understand that you do have competition, mm-hmm. and you have to just leave business in general. But if you understand and you realize that you do have competition, define those enemies. Make sure that you define, because Sun Tzu said, know yourself and know your enemy, or else you're in certain peril. So if you don't understand your enemies, then you will absolutely be in peril. So know your enemies and understand that it is always somebody else's issue. If somebody doesn't like you, if you have made an enemy by being authentic and being yourself. Now, if you're just spouting off at the mouth, trying to be a tough guy or whatever, and you have nothing to back it up, and you are fraudulent in your claims or fraudulent in your being, then you have no reason again to be in business. So mm-hmm. So I definitely believe that if you know your enemies and you understand that their rejection and their hatred or their mistrust or their whatever they have with you is actually their issue. If you're authentic to yourself, you should have absolutely no problem. But
okay. All right. Now, would you say that also having enemies is a good thing for business?
Well, it depends on the enemies. I mean, right. If the federal government is your enemy, no, it's not. But but if you have a competition, if you ever see, and this is a beautiful move, if you ever see a Home Depot, you see one right next to a Lowe's. Mm-hmm. If right. you see a local coffee shop or a Starbucks, you'll see a local coffee shop right next to a Starbucks. Mm-hmm. And that's, and you'll see that there's always, with like restaurants or, like there's always a Burger King next to a McDonald's and next to an Arby's and
right.
next to
right.
all that garbage food, what I mean?
Right.
But, they're in clusters because people know that they're not going to be eating McDonald's every single day. That they might want a Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell, or whatever. Right. So, yeah, it's awesome to have enemies, but if you know your enemies, that's when you can, when you can differentiate yourself. If you know who your enemies are, then you can differentiate yourself if it's authentic. But you have to find that differentiation. Or that difference, basically.
Right. All right, now let's talk about, because it kind of goes along the same line as having enemies, controversy. There's good controversy, obviously, and there's bad controversy. Can you give me some examples, put you on the spot a little bit, of good type of controversy that can help build your business and your brand?
Well, good controversy is any time that you're doing something that's different that people are, like myself, I can absolutely put you on the spot. I was in my column telling people that they were fat and stupid. and that they weren't, and that stupid was a behavior and not a sign of intelligence. And so when you can cause controversy and explain that controversy and basically educate people on what that controversy is, it can be very, very good, because it's basically a wake-up call. It's a slap in the face. Bad controversy is some of the stuff that I did also, which was, stupid, getting drunk, having fights, or something stupid like that, and getting arrested. Now I was considered controversial, but that was more stupidity than it was anything else. So, but also a bad controversy is making bad business mistakes. I really have to let you know that there's only 3 decisions that you can make in your business. There's only 3. There's a good decision, a bad decision, and a wrong decision. And a good decision obviously is, good for your business. A bad decision can always be reconciled. There's always tomorrow. So it's not going to kill your business. But a wrong decision is a distraction to your brand, and it absolutely disrupts forward momentum. So, wrong decisions are sometimes the cause of the bad controversy.
Right. Okay. Now, in your opinion, when we talk about branding, is it better to start branding yourself right off the bat when you're starting your business, or should they start to build a business, build a following, and start to build their brand from there?
Well, that's a great question, Eric, because everybody comes to me as a last resort. and that's usually, I'm always working backwards. I feel like I'm a mechanic and a business therapist. So, so really, everyone, and you're going to hear a lot of shit from a lot of other people, but the first thing that you need to do is find out who you are, what you're about, and what you stand for. And that's the beginning of building your brand. And that brand you can always build upon, because your brand is ever evolving. It's an evolution. It is never, ever a specific product or service that you do. Because as we grow, as people, so does our brand. If you ever take a look at certain bands, why do certain bands or certain comedians or certain actors, they become irrelevant? Because they have not been able to evolve from that child star. Some of the best actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, and the like, were able to evolve from that skinny little kid, that cute little kid, into an adult actor. The people that can't, like Screech, or that guy that plays Screech, or some of the other people, Beaver and those guys, they've never been able to get out of that. And that's the same thing with business. We grow, and like bands, some of the best bands. I mean, I'm a huge, a Bruce Springsteen fan, being from Jersey. But if you take a look at his brand, how is it that the guy's almost 70 years old? And he's still rocking, and he has fans that are 12, 15, 20 years old, because he was able to still evolve and still keep that brand in forward momentum.
Okay, so you should start working on it from the beginning, is what you're saying.
Well, that's before anything.
Okay.
I mean, that's even before. And the basic formula I can give your people is brand idea. You have this brand idea, and everybody has an idea of what their business is going to be. That is your brand idea. That's right where you start from. So you start with that brand idea, and you build a brand strategy from that. And from that brand strategy, you build a business strategy. Do you see? Brand idea, brand strategy, and then the business strategy comes in. That's like the third thing on the list. It's not even the first. But everybody wants to build a business plan, a business outline, a business strategy. And you really can't. Take your idea, understand what that thing is, and then it makes it easier to create a forward momentum.
Okay. Now, what about, because you mentioned Bruce Springsteen before, I mean, what about people who have a business that are highly tied into that person themselves? I mean, doesn't that kind of create a bit of a problem if, say, that person wants to leave the business? Like Apple and Steve Jobs? Steve leaves, Apple's going to suffer a little bit from that.
Well, everything is going to suffer. I mean, everything does suffer, but if Steve Jobs did his job, okay, now this is on you, okay? You have to take full responsibility for this, because if Steve Jobs does his real job, he's going to prime somebody. He's going to groom somebody, and he's going to make sure that he picks maybe 3 or 4 people have to do his job, because he is a creative genius. And you don't really find too many creative geniuses like him, or like a Bill Gates, or people like that, or a Bruce Springsteen. So, you can never have the E Street Band without Bruce Springsteen. But that's the reason why also, though, you want to develop maybe that personal brand. But you can also, like Gold's Gym. Gold's Gym was built by Joe Gold. And then they took his philosophy and then franchised it. And Bill Pearl did the same thing. It didn't go as big as like Gold's, but some did like Powerhouse Gym. That was a business.
Right.
Urban Active in the Midwest. So you can do it, but if you do tie yourself into it, make sure that you have a kid that has your same name and groom them, or groom him
okay.
or her as some, because all in all, you are gonna die, or you're gonna retire, or whatever. And if you want your brand to keep going, like the Martha Stewart brand, when she dies, it's gonna keep going.
Right.
It will keep going, and trust me on that, because it's the same thing with Liz Claiborne. Liz Claiborne has all these designers, and those designers are going to keep that brand going. She groomed some great people. So,
okay. Okay. Now, in your case, you've got a very dynamic personality. You've got an interesting name, and you've got a great story and a background. Is that easier to brand somebody like you than it would be somebody who's shy or quiet?
Well, if you're shy and quiet, just be a worker bee. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna, I can't say, oh yeah, you can be the greatest, because you know what, the squeaky wheel gets the attention. I mean, it really does. The more obnoxious you are, and this is just me naturally. I mean, if you get me at a party with a glass of wine in me, I'm actually louder. So it's a little tough.
No drinking for you when we're around, all right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough to calm me down, because I really love what I do,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very, very tough to brand, and a lot of those types of like people come to me asking me for advice. I had a yoga teacher that was very quiet, didn't want to do the work, didn't want to, make people feel uncomfortable or whatever. And, her business suffered horribly because she didn't want to do what she needed to do to get out there, to network, to, if you're not into people. Now, I don't really like people in general. I mean, I'm not a big people liker, I mean,
Yeah.
just, because I hear the same stupid shit over and over and over. So, it gets a little redundant after 30 years in the business. I mean, I'm like the uncle of, I'm not, a grandfather in the fitness business yet, but I'm more like the uncle of the fitness business. I've been in it. I was one of the first personal trainers to be certified. So, back in 90, 1 and 92. So when the personal training industry was just in its infancy,
Right.
I was there trying to make my mark, and what happens is you see all this and you see what works, but then you have to stay true to your authenticity and to your brand. If you're not what you're perceived to be, people will see that fraudulent activity. Tony Little is a great example. Tony Little is not that, hey, everybody, hey, look at it guy. He is nothing like that in person. So he isn't being authentic whatsoever. And people seem to see through it, and then he has a hard time waking up every morning being that Tony Little guy. It's
right.
hard to do on a regular basis.
Okay.
And
now let me ask you this, because now boot camps or group training is a huge thing. Everybody's doing it. They're focusing on in that fat loss.
Well, it's not that huge anymore. I mean, it used to be, but it's
used
not
to be.
huge.
But that's where everybody seems to be pushing. Because you make more money for the groups, cost less, that type of thing. But everybody's doing.
It's an easy sell for fitness business gurus.
Yeah.
That's why.
Right. Now everybody's trying to do that. A lot of people are doing the same thing. If you had someone who was doing that, who was a client, what would you do to have them be different, or how would you brand them so that they could be different from the ABC boot camp that's down the road?
Well, I think that boot camps have become a commodity. So once you become a commodity business, it's really time to get out. It's really time to get out. But to answer your question, and I'll get back to the reason to get out in a minute, but to answer your question, you have to figure out what you're doing different. Most of the time, no one is doing anything different. They're still doing the reps, the station stuff, and there's nothing really anything better, So if somebody's paying $150 or $200 for a boot camp, what are they getting more than the person that's charging $99 for the boot camp? The way that I differentiated myself was I don't know if you know Brian Calkins, but he's a really good trainer out of Cincinnati also. And when I was in Cincinnati, I was in northern Kentucky, and he was in Cincinnati. I kind of said I was in Cincinnati because I was on the radio and I had my column in Cincinnati. But Brian had Adventure Boot Camp,
mm-hmm.
and he was charging $300 a month, and he was doing, he had people lugging dumbbells and suitcases full of stuff into a parking lot at 5 a.m. So I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, and I really knew my enemy. I knew Brian, I knew him personally, and I knew his brand, and I knew Adventure Boot Camp. So I knew how I could be different. One was I just wanted people to bring a yoga mat and a towel and water. That was it. So I developed a system where we only did bodyweight exercises, and you basically had a 10 square foot space that you worked in. There was no running because most people hated running. And so I made them do stairs instead of actual running. So that was the way that I differentiated myself. And I said, you know what? There is nothing. It's only going to cost you $99, a month, and it's a month to month, not a boot camp to boot camp. So I made it easy for people to give me money. I made it easy for people to join. They knew exactly what they were getting, and they got their ass kicked. And when they came, it was like, wow, you could really get a great workout with just bodyweight exercise.
Yep.
And so I actually grew that boot camp to be like 250 people in one class. Nobody in the history of boot camps has ever had a 250 person class. So what I did was I went to a central place. It was called Newport on the Levee, and it was right next to an aquarium, and it had this huge promenade. It was huge, and so I said, well, I want to fill that promenade. I don't want 10 people. I want that place to look filled up. So I just kept going after it, and it just so happened that I was on the radio every week. I had a syndicated column, so I already had a celebrity status.
Right.
So people, and what I did was very different. And in the very beginning of the whole boot camp phenomenon, I was right there. I was the first one to ever have a boot camp in America. I don't know if you know that or not, but and you could check out the newspapers to see that. But what that big thing was that I wanted people to know that they could get. Now everybody says this now, but it's not necessarily true that you could have one of the top fitness guys in the country train you, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on personal training.
Right.
I see that being said a lot, and you know what? Some of these trainers, they just get their certification and they get a boot camp franchise, and now they're the best trainer in the world. You can only use that line if you're really one of the top guys.
Right.
And that's what's happened with the whole boot camp business, is that you have to figure out how you're different and how that difference is relevant to your audience. Who are you going after? Are you going after moms? Are you going after men? Are you going after fat women? Are you going after people that just had babies? There's a lot of different audiences, but again, a lot of people are you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one. And
right,
that's
now,
something that
I'm curious. Briefly, you talked about. I just kind of want to know why you still think it's good to get out of the boot camp business now.
Well, because once it becomes a commodity, people only look at the price of the boot camp. So I have a lot of my clients that come to me and say, "Oh, my boot camp sucks. I don't know what to do." And you have 10 different boot camps in your area. Well, if there's 10 different boot camps in your area, then I always tell people to go back to personal training and to do small group training because that's how you're going to differentiate yourself from all the boot camps. So I think that it's time for personal trainers to go back to personal training, but to also see what is their brand, because there are so many other opportunities to make, a residual income and a recurring income, especially with the internet and especially with the availability of new media. It's just insane. And that's kind of what I really teach.
Okay. All right. Well, part of that, let's get into that, because I know now you can do a lot of this stuff online. I'm curious about press releases. Okay. Are you a big fan of those? Do you still use those for branding?
Now I am with Google. I'm a huge fan with Google.
Okay.
Because Google has this thing called News, like Google News. And so if you're doing a really good keyword-rich, a press release, Google will put that press release on the top of the pile. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the traditional press release, but if you can, because the media doesn't really care about you. They really don't. They care about the hook. They care about the angle. They care about what anchors what you're doing to make a good story. So, you have to you can't send out a press release because I don't care. I really just don't. So I always write, and I always teach people how to write a pitch.
Okay.
And a pitch is what a producers of radio and what a producers of TV shows actually get and they want, because you're basically doing their job for them.
Okay.
Whenever
Can you give me a good example of like something like a good pitch to something off of a business or maybe a client or something that you have?
Well, with Autism Fitness, I can tell you with Eric Chesson, the ability to assess your child's ability to do exercise is an awesome pitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome idea. It's an awesome hook, because most parents have no clue what to do with their kid that's getting fatter and fatter by the minute. And they're scared to death that their kid, that they're the reason why. There's an emotional hook there. They're scared to death that they're the problem, that their kid is getting fatter. So yeah, you can use that to get to the adults to be able to sell Autism Fitness, let's say,
Okay.
a product or a seminar.
Okay, so once you have that hook, right, and you've got that pitch, how do you go about getting the media to notice it and notice what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so when you do the pitch, you have to write it out, and I know that Eric will give you an example, but if you follow that example and you have specific questions that you should be answered, the reason why the hook is the best story for them to do, and then give a little bit about why you are the person for the job. Okay, because you have to sell yourself. If you're not selling yourself as the expert, again, nobody cares.
Right.
Because there's a million other experts that are, like me, more than happy to tell them how great they are. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you want to listen to me. Okay. So you want to make sure that you send that pitch, and you can send it, most of the time, you send it via email with a great title, a great subject line. You have to have that, because the most important thing is you have to sell what the story is.
Right.
So if you're going to email it, make sure that the subject's awesome so that they actually open the thing.
Okay. And who are you directing those emails to? Is there anybody specific that you'd recommend to reach out to?
Yes. Yeah, producers of the shows.
Okay.
And the way that you get to those producers is you get on the phone. Everybody's scared. Most business professionals believe that they have no access to people, and that's such a bad decision, to tell you the truth, because everyone is accessible. There may be a lot of buffers, but you can get to them. And one of the things, if you want to get on radio, I still believe, is the best way to sell your wares. I think that TV is not as good. And I'll explain that in a second. But radio, you can always call up the radio station, and not the studio line, the actual business line. And they're all in the phone book. They're all online. You can get their phone numbers and ask the receptionist who the producer is for the morning show. Now, most of the time, the producer is like part of the show. So in like Cincinnati, when I was on a Q102 or on the Gary Burbank show, the producer was this girl Fritsch for Q102, and on the Gary Burbank show, it was Rob Irvin. So everybody knew who the producer was. So when they called up, they just asked for Rob Irvin. And you know what? The receptionist and the switchboard sends you to his phone. It's amazing how that happened. And so when you get them on the line, you only have 15 seconds. So don't be stuttering. I mean, like, you know, in the beginning, I do stutter. So it's a little it's a little rough for me to be doing interviews or whatever. So, but you practice what you're going to say, and you practice it over and over and over again in the mirror. And then you get on the phone and you make the pitch and why the hook that you created is the best story and a good interview, and why you're the person for that story in 15 seconds. Now, that's the reason why you need to know who you are, what you're about, and what you stand for. Because if you don't know that, you can't create a very simple, clear, and concise message. Because if you're confused about your brand, you're going to confuse a whole lot of other people too. So once you're able to do that, you can have, and that's why I said everything else falls into place. It's a domino effect. And so when you get, because most of the time you're never going to get them live. You're never going to get them live. So you have to sell in that voicemail. And then after that, if they call you back, you better make sure that you know exactly what you're doing on that interview.
Now, what about follow-ups? Because sometimes, you know, producers, you know, are very busy.
I was just going to get that. I was just going to get to that.
Okay.
That's absolutely the most important thing, because you can send the voicemail, you can send the email, but, you know, producers get easily 100 emails a day. I get over 4,000 emails a week. So I'm going to have to believe that they're in the tens of like thousands of like emails. So, and they're getting phone calls. Now, they're not getting as many phone calls as they are emails, because it's a lot easier to send an anonymous email or an email without actually talking. You know, like so many people are afraid of like public speaking and being even on the telephone, they consider that a public speaking fear. So they won't get as many. And if you sound like me and you have a real good passion and you sound like you should be on radio, you know, they're going to put you on radio, and they're going to put you on quick. So,
cool.
So the follow-up is the most important thing. And if you don't get somebody the first time, you know, only call them once a day. Don't call them 5 times a day, because then they will say, that crazy lunatic, right? Holy shit, you know. But call once a day at the same time, you know, or call once a day at different times of the day, so that you may be able to like catch them. Okay. And then once you do catch them, do not sell your product or sell your book or whatever to the producer. Just sell getting on the show. You know, it's kind of like what we do here when we're doing a product or when we're doing email marketing. You know all about this, Eric. You know, you're selling the click, or you're selling, you know, you're not selling the whole product. You want them just to open the email, or you want them to pick up the telephone. That's what you're selling. You're selling them the urgency to pick up that telephone, to pick up, you know, to open that email. It's the same thing. You want to sell getting on the show, not your product.
Okay. Now, you mentioned TV being not as effective as radio. I'm kind of curious as to why.
TV on the local level is not that viable, because you're usually thrown in between, you know, unless you're on locally once a week, you know, at a consistent time, it's almost not worth being on TV. Because, I mean, I like you to be on TV just because you can grab that video and use it as like social, as like a third party social proof. Hey, I'm the best there is because I was on this TV show. But don't believe for 1 minute that just because you're on a TV show, on a morning show, that that's going to bring in business. It's not. It won't bring in one person. And if it does, it's literally a fluke.
Right.
You want to use that video like you use these videos. I mean, we're doing this so that you can show that you know all, a lot of the top trainers in the world and that you're an expert. That's the reason why you do this. I mean, and the reason why I do it is because I love to do it. So, but TV in general, unless you're on a consistent basis, you're not going to gain any traction with it. Yeah. So if you have a certain, show that you like, try to get on it more often. And then you could put it on your website. I always use the different stuff, like when I was on CNN or ESPN, ESPN2, all those different shows. I just put it on my website.
Right.
And
right. Social
people
proof.
could it's a weird thing because it's like third party social proof. It's like, it's like that TV station and that host who is supposed to be a smart person picked you to be the expert. To give out the information that they thought was right. needed, was viable. So that's really where I think when you get on TV, you got to use it. And you have to make sure, though, you go in prepared because the media hates people. They don't like people. So don't think, oh, yeah, they're going to just love me because I'm the greatest person in the world. They don't. And if you believe that, you're an idiot then because it just doesn't work that way. They're there to do a job. They're there to give out information. So you have to understand and know the whole way to go, the whole procedure of that. So if you want your video or your clip or whatever, you make sure that you go into that studio with a DVD or a CD that they could burn right then and there because you don't want to leave that place without your clip.
Okay, now what about coming off, presenting good on radio or TV? Do you have any tips as to, make sure people don't suck, when they're live?
Well, most people do suck. So when I don't want to sound like a negative interview here, but right. Most people suck when they go on the interview. If you don't get media training and you think, if you believe that you're the greatest interview in the world, you're going to fail miserably because two things hosts of shows hate more than anything is when you actively try to sell your book or your product. They hate that more than anything because now they think that you're just a sleazy little whore that is using them to make a profit. And they literally hate that. So if you can just go on, be yourself, and go on the interview with only three main points. Some people say 5 main points, but usually you only have about 2 to 3 minutes to get everything out. So really 3 points and make those points specific to what your brand is and to what you're about. And if you can do that and you have a conversation like you would have with a friend. So do some research on the host. And listen to the show, listen to his delivery, see if he likes to tell jokes, if he likes to break your balls. If he does, well, then you can use that because you can really connect with the host. And as long as you're not selling anything and you're giving good information, they're going to plug you as much as they humanly possibly can within that 3-minute period. They will do their job. Don't worry about that. They will
Okay.
absolutely do their job, and they will always plug you because you're giving good information. And if you give a good interview, they will have you back. But
Okay.
the main things are to have three main points. Do not sell your product, or it will sell itself, and the host will sell it for you, and that's what you want. You never want to say, well, in my book on page 108, I really talk about this thing. Well, you know what? So what? Now
Right.
because you said that, and the host is now visibly irritated that you're doing it, I'm not going to buy your book.
Right.
And that's what happens.
Now, what about on the TV side of things, appearance? Any tips on how to present yourself, what to wear, what to look like, all of those types of
You
things?
never wear black, ever. Never wear black. I did, and it made me look washed out because of my skin color. So the best colors actually with my skin color are like an olive green or a blue, a darker blue. Blue looks black on TV a
Hmm.
lot of times, like the darker blue. Uh, like try not to wear grays and anything that makes the the picture fuzzy, and never wear stripes.
Yeah.
Never wear stripes because it comes off. It's very very busy on the screen, and people are like looking at your shirt, going, "What the hell is he doing wearing that stupid ass shirt?" Than the actual um, uh, like actually looking at you and wanting the information.
Right. Right. And I know the answer to this, but what about like a lighter color green? Would you recommend wearing that or not wearing that? Not like a dark green, like an olive, but maybe like more of a green where it's kind of a neon color.
No, absolutely not. A lot of times, uh, some media coaches will say yes to the lighter green because it's the furthest thing away from your skin color so that you can see your skin. But that's the reason why they use it for green screens.
Right.
But I don't recommend ever walking into a television studio with a light green shirt on because you don't know if you're going to be in front of a green screen.
Right. Okay.
So
And
I
that's what I
like.
was getting at because that's a good point, and that's happened to quite a few people when I worked in the media industry. We'd have to fix that quite a bit. So.
Oh yeah, well, but always take a second, shirt or like change of like clothes. You
Okay.
always want to have, and I mean, I always like to go to an interview exactly how people would see me on the street. So if you would see me with my logo shirt on and I'm walking into the coffee shop, from my gym or whatever, that's the way that you want to be seen. Don't be going dressed up in a suit if you don't wear a suit every day. You want to be wearing what you would be normally seen on the street wearing because that's when people say, "Hey, you know what? Aren't you the guy I saw on?" Yes,
Okay. All right. Now
that's
let's
the.
dive into. I'm going to stop there. I want to dive into because I know this is an area you're expert in too, branding, but for the online internet side of things. All right.
Sure.
Obviously, TV we're just talking about, but in our case, it's starting to go video and things like that. What type of suggestions do you have for people who want to brand online and do it the right way via video or audio? Whatever you have with that would be cool.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a website. You have to have some type of like web presence because because the first thing that people do, they don't look into other yellow pages anymore. They look online and they're going to Google you and they're going to make sure. And you want to start off locally. So make sure that you have a web presence locally at least. And also you're able, when you're out there in the world networking, say, hey, you can check it on my website, askroccomedia.com. Or you can check out, the fitness interviews, So you want to be able to absolutely have that web presence. That's the first thing that you need to have. You need a blog and a website. A static website tells people it's basically like the window into your business, and your blog is the way that you connect. Now, there's other things that you connect to those different things, like Facebook, like Twitter, and we'll get into that also. But the most important thing is you have to show on your website your genuine or your authenticity. You can't have something. Too many people have websites that are supposed to look like what the fitness industry is. If you ever go to Zach Evanesh's website, or you go to Jason Ferrugia's website, or you go to Dale Buchanan's website, at Supreme Ultimate Fitness, or you go to Autism Fitness, or you go to AskRoccoBlog.com, you're going to know exactly what you're getting right away. And that's how you make the connection, because new media, the internet, the web, and, on Twitter, Facebook, you're making a connection with people, and you only have a very small window to make that connection. And it doesn't matter if you don't make a connection with every single person. When I found that I was an asshole, I was trying to sell to 65% of the population that didn't like me. I was like, and I couldn't sell. It was a very hard thing, because I'm a hard sell. I'm a hard ass. I'm going to tell you you're fat. If you don't like it, too fucking bad. It's just a condition. We can fix it. And that was the whole thing. People didn't like that. So, but the people that did like it were the people that were attracted to me. And you want to find out who is attracted to you. That's the main thing. Who is attracted to you? And that's what you're going to find out by being authentic on your website.
Okay, and so that's how you find out, is so by being yourself. That's how you're going to find out who's attracted to you.
Yes, and then when you're on the different social media, like Facebook or whatever, you get them to your blog so that people can, if you just put up a blog and think that people are going to just come to your blog because you built it, just because you built it doesn't mean that people are going to come. You have to do some work, and the way that you do some work is you have a certain email list or a certain list of your clients. Let's say, if you're just a personal trainer starting out and you have, 20 clients, 30 clients, well, that's your base. That's your 30-person base. And you send them emails, directing them to the blog, and then they're going to tell their friends about what you're saying and about what you're doing. And if it's information that connects with that person, they're going to want to tell more people about it. My column, started out as my radio segment. And that's how it just snowballed into different things. And then I decided that I could make way more money instead of having a syndicated column, having my own blog and having a web presence. So I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And we're gonna wrap up soon, but I want to do something with you that I don't know why. Maybe I'm a little crazy too. I want you to, maybe people can learn off of this. For example, I have my blog. I'm doing the interviews here. You're the expert at this. I want you to tear me apart so people can learn. Tell me, so they can learn and help build their businesses better. Tear my website apart and what I'm doing. Do what you would do if I was a coaching client. So we're doing the interviews. What have you noticed? We're just go right ahead. What do you think I'm doing right or wrong, or something that would be good to help people?
Well, I'm going to be looking off camera just a little tiny bit.
Sure.
So your audience doesn't think that I'm being a total asshole.
Hey man, go right ahead. I'm giving you permission. It's cool. It's a little bit of entertainment too.
So let's just say online, okay? Online, your brand. Now I know you, Eric. I followed you, and it's been a pretty cool thing that I've watched you develop into a persona. And the one thing is that you absolutely have to have a simple, clear, and concise message, which you absolutely do. Okay, so I can't beat you up on that. It's, fitness business interviews. If people don't get that, obviously you're doing interviews with some of the top fitness business people in the country, in the world, or whatever. And you have the tagline, which is very, very simple: conversations with top fitness entrepreneurs. You can't get any more simple than that. That's basically your brand. Now, you do get when people do come to the website, you get that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing stuff afterwards. So if you do something when they're leaving the page, I want to know why they're leaving the page, and then give them an offer or something like that. So I don't know if you have that yet. I haven't left the page yet, but that's something that I would recommend that people do.
Okay, there's nothing like that yet.
Okay, so there will be after today probably. So, and I'll go. Don't worry.
Now, what about, because I know a lot of people, and I've gotten a lot of comments and feedbacks on this, the interviews, people seem to like them in terms of a style, like, because I have a certain style that I use, and it's just been years and years of doing this, I've developed it. Your recommendations on that are for people who are trying to do interviews, like, if there's anything you don't like about what I'm doing, tell me, so that way I can know and it'll help other people.
Well, actually, I like the one bad thing that I would, or like a critical thing that I would say, but, like these are recorded, so they're not live. So that's good. Never do a live interview if you don't feel comfortable doing a live interview. That's one thing. But if it is a recorded, one thing that you have done throughout the interview a couple of times is like you want it to stop. When somebody's rolling, let them roll. I know that like you need time. I mean, like you only have an hour and you want to get into all this shit, but let them roll and just edit them. That's kind of the best thing that I've learned, because you can edit certain things out and you can wrap something up. But if you stop somebody right in the middle of a thought, the interview kind of fucks up and it goes a little, they have to kind of get their composure. And I kind of had to do that. When you stopped me, I was like, oh, okay, let me get back on track. Or and I recommend that you email people, and just email them and make sure that they turn off their phones and make sure that they're in a place where they can't be disturbed. I was interrupted by my telephone. So it's just a quick thing. Whenever I do interviews, I always prepare people for everything. So just email them and just have a little checklist of here is what, and I call it expectation of experience. So if you can, email them what your expectation of experience really is, well, then it will make the interview go a lot smoother. And then it will actually help the person that's being interviewed organize their thoughts in a way that would be conducive to a great interview.
Very cool. Now, lastly, we'll just wrap things up real quick. Online, video, audio, whatever, building a brand anywhere, what is something that people should never do?
Oh, never do. I think you were going to go with the you always do.
No.
That was beautiful. What they should never do is they should never just put up shit. Don't just put up some video that you just shot 4 seconds ago. Every time that you put a video up, make sure that you put a little production into it. If it's titles, make sure that you have a title. Don't ever don't ever make a video without you being named in it. You know, and you can make a little graphic, and you can buy the graphics, and make sure that people know that you are the celebrity. You're the person that they should be listening to. So, like, whenever you see my videos or whatever, you always see your host or a Rocco Castellano owner, something like that. You should never ever just throw up a video and you know, all natural, because it's not gonna make the impact that you want as a celebrity or as a fitness expert. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, you know, never keep never keep the media waiting. You know, if you mess up, apologize, and you know, like I did today. You know, I have to take a responsibility. I thought it was a different time, and I called you right up. I said, you know what? I'm sorry. You know, can we still do this? And you were very, you know, you were very nice, and you said yes, and you were being fair also. You know, so we got it done. But I tried very hard never to be late, and always know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't talk about it. You know, because people will see through that you have no clue what you're talking about.
Very cool, Rocco. Appreciate all the awesome information. You got a ton of cool tips in here that can help people become a celebrity in their local market. Applying some of this is just going to be huge for a lot of people. So if people want to know more or find out more information or maybe get some help from you, where can they find that?
Well, you can go to Fitness Branding 101, AskRoccoBlog.com, and you can actually buy a product called a Local Fitness Celebrity. And I have other products coming out, but those are the three that you can mostly get the information that you need.
Very cool. Well, Rocco, thanks so much for the time, man, and I'll talk with you soon.
Oh, thank you, Eric. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.